Great news for bigots. A group that published a list of 29 pitfalls of working with white people at a diversity conference had received $250,000 from the U.S. Department of Justice, meaning we paid for the hate. Who's next in line? The Black Panthers, Al Sharpton? They're called the Beyond Diversity Resource Center, and apparently they found what's beyond diversity. It's division. Remember, stoking racial hate is key if it makes money. One of the pitfalls listed is that white people ask stupid questions. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, wait, I just did it. I guess they're right. I am a stupid white person. How did I get dressed this morning? What's up with doorknobs? How do you turn them? I'm such an idiot. Maybe this is why the VA scandal happened. As the country becomes more preoccupied with pigment, priorities of old dissipate into a cloud of strident stupidity. Quotas trump quality. It's all part of the new brainwash. If you're white, you're evil by birth. They also claim that whites, quote, benefit financially off the backs of people of color. This is true for the white diversity goons who make thousands feeding this toxic dribble to minorities. Maybe that's the white privilege strategy after all. For every minority obsessed with privilege, that's one less person competing for an actual job. And when you're an incompetent white boob with no talent teaching white privilege, that really helps. Andrea.
Yeah.
This takes a serious issue and it turns it into a joke. I find that offensive and I want it banned. I'm kidding. I don't care.
You can ban it. I can't. Now, let's just imagine, okay, that this was a white organization putting out a pamphlet that when it talks about white people, and I don't know if you have this full screen, Greg, but they stereotype them saying they ask stupid questions, they're on the backs of people. Could you imagine if it were the reverse? Mm-hmm. Yet the Department of Justice, instead of going after this type of thing, they encourage it. They use our tax dollars to go after it. But Eric Holder has proven to be the most divisive racial demagogue in the entire administration. He has used phrases like my people, which, again, if he were a white attorney general and he had said my people, he would have been gone within 24 hours. He has refused to prosecute the Black Panther case. There's a list, there's a laundry list of incidents when the racial divide and the racial discrimination is going the other way against whites. He is completely MIA. Mm-hmm.
Now, Bob, about Andrea's point that, like, if you did this in reverse and it was about blacks, the argument would be that would matter because the power structure is catered to whites, so you can't compare the two.
Yeah, listen, I have a problem with this. Simply because it like often you are guilty of, is to say that all people.
Yes.
Well, and this idea that all people, white people, are stupid who you work for, is a pretty blanket indictment. I mean, I think you have to be very careful when you say things like that. There are
depends where you work, Bob.
Well, yeah. I mean, here, for example, our executive producer, he's down on me, but he's a right winger. But that's all right. He'll be mad now. But no, I think the idea of doing something like this does, unless you can be specific. If you're bringing out specific instances, I think you're opening it up for an indictment of people that do not deserve it.
This is one of them, Eric. They claim one of the things whites do is they get too friendly too fast.
I mean, each other. Remember that old Saturday Night Live skit? Eddie Murphy gets on the bus and he pretends to be white, and all the white people were having a lot of fun, but they never let the black people know. But here's what this is. You got to see it. You go on. It's hysterical. Racial divisiveness. What it does, yeah, it does. It makes money. Ask Al Sharpton. Ask Jesse Jackson. Ask the rest of the race, as Bill O'Reilly would call it, race merchants. There's a whole money thing going on there. It keeps them relevant. It keeps them with the donations. But there's also the other thing too. It's the voting block. Mm-hmm. It keeps the voting block together. If you can paint the white guy as the bad guy, then you can go ahead and say, but we're not them, so let's stick together and make sure they're painted as the bad guy, they're evil. Let's make sure we get our people in office. Instead of, forget if he's white or black, do we want this person in office because it's good for me, which is what they really should be asking.
Yeah. Katie, I do think that there are actual beneficiaries of privilege, but they're liberals.
Right. There are a
At least
lot
in our
of white
business,
liberals.
Except for Bob.
We call those limousine liberals. Yeah. No, this money that funded these pamphlets and all this other stuff came from the Department of Justice, right, which has been obsessed with supposedly fighting racism. But I think it's important to remind people that Eric Holder has literally been carrying around a race card in his wallet for 30 years with a quote about blackness. And I think that we're to the point where maybe we should remind him that racism goes both ways, and it's probably time for him and the people who work under him in the Department of Justice to support things like this, to check their own prejudice.
Well, but the fact of the matter is that prejudice and racism still exist in America in a lot of areas, and it has to be dealt with. It has to be talked about. It has not been talked about before. I think Holder is in a unique position to do that because he is an African American, and it is about time somebody was willing to say that other people have not been willing to say, and that is that the quiet, not Jim Crow, but the quiet subliminal racism still exists in this country, and it's a very serious issue.
Bob, that's fine if he wants to address racism, but he doesn't address reverse racism or racism against whites or racism against Hispanics. For example, the flash mobs. Did the president or Eric Holder say anything about flash mobs when whites and Jews were being reportedly attacked disproportionately by blacks? Nothing. But they'll weigh in on every single instance when it's a black like Trayvon Martin, and they won't touch the instances when whites are
I think
discriminated against. And there's a long list.
I think it's fair to say that whites have been far less discriminated against in this country.
It doesn't mean that when there's a case, you totally ignore it.
Well, it's my sympathy for white discrimination by blacks is fairly minimal.
All right, we got to move on.